You or a loved one has been arrested. Should you hire a criminal lawyer or a bondsman? Which one's more important? Hi, I'm Jeff Hampton with the Hampton Law Firm. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about that. Which should you do first? Maybe you got a phone call from a detective saying you have a warrant for your arrest. Maybe you had a loved one who's been arrested and they're sitting in jail. Which one makes more sense? Which should you do first? Should you hire a lawyer or should you hire a bondsman? Maybe you don't have the resources to be able to hire both. Which one makes the most sense? By the way, if you wait around to the end of this video, I'll also provide you a free ebook, What to Do If You Have Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Okay, so this is one of the most common questions that I receive. Now, ideally, you would hire both, okay? Let's say you or a loved one, particularly if it's a loved one, because you're in the position of being able to make these decisions for them. If you have a loved one who's been arrested and you're trying to figure out what your next steps are, what are the big priorities? You want out of jail, you want your loved one out of jail, or you want out of jail, and you want good legal representation to fight your case. But what if you're in a position where you're not immediately able to afford hiring that individual or hiring an attorney right away, or you've got to kind of make a decision between one or the other? Well, I want to talk to you for a few moments about the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of hiring a bondsman first instead of a lawyer and the other way around, okay? So number one, let's say you make the decision to hire a bondsman. Remember, what is a bondsman? A bondsman is someone who helps post a bond to get someone out of jail. That's really the only authority that they have. They have no ability to do anything else, certainly none of the roles of an attorney, so they can only post a bond and provide someone freedom. So the biggest advantage of hiring a bondsman is you or your loved one gets out of jail. And many times that's one of the top priorities. But what are some of the disadvantages of going to hire a bondsman first or only a bondsman and not an attorney? Well, number one, you end up paying for a bond, and sometimes people are left with a court-appointed attorney if they can't afford the next step, which is to hire a lawyer. So what good is it to bond out of jail if you end up being assigned an attorney who doesn't do a good job and you end up going right back into jail shortly thereafter based upon how your case is resolved? But without good representation, the other negative is you don't have a plan for your defense. So you obviously don't want to lose out on the opportunity of being able to take advantage of certain steps that might ensure long-term freedom by making sure you have a good attorney in addition to maintaining the freedom that you have by posting bond. But then here's some of the other things. A bondsman cannot change your bond conditions. What if a judge sets some unreasonable bond conditions for you or your loved one? You get out and now there's all these restrictions that are placed upon you. Your bondsman can't do anything about that, okay? They have no ability to go request the court make those modifications. Bondsmen also cannot help with the bond amount. What if your bond is an unreasonably high amount? What if your loved one, instead of what should be a $2,000 bond, what if it's a $50,000 bond? Your bondsman can't do anything except charge you for the amount for the $50,000 bond. They can't do any type of bond modifications. Okay, and then finally, a bondsman may put restrictions on your ability to travel, your ability to do other types of things, because if they see you as being high risk on that bond, they're going to keep a very tight leash on you. So those are some of the negatives of a bondsman, of only hiring a bondsman, exclusive of hiring an attorney. But let's talk for a few moments about hiring a criminal attorney. Let's say if you had to make a decision between one or the other, let's talk about hiring a criminal lawyer. What are some of those advantages? Well, number one, that criminal attorney, let's say you're not in jail yet. Let's say your loved one has not been arrested yet. If you just received notification that you have an active warrant, your criminal lawyer can actually contact that detective, determine the bond amount, determine if the detective is open to reconsidering the investigation at this point, particularly if you happen to have evidence to show that you are not guilty of the crime. That may be information that can be shared with the detective to make a determination about that warrant. But the attorney can also help you coordinate the time to turn yourself in and making sure that you're hopefully not in jail for an unreasonable period of time. Because in the reality of it, particularly in the North Texas area, there is a certain time that's more ideal for you to turn yourself in a jail. There's certain processes and procedures to be aware of to try to minimize the amount of time that you're looking to be in jail. And you want to be aware with a plan of action so that you're getting in and out as quickly as possible if you have to turn yourself in. And on certain rare occasions, you can actually receive what's called a waiver of magistrate, which means there is no such thing as a walkthrough in North Texas anymore, but some certain circumstances you can be permitted to do what's the equivalent of a walkthrough through a waiver of magistrate through your attorney. Your bondsman cannot help you with that process, okay? A criminal attorney may be able to also post your bond. Just as the Hampton law firm is, there are some attorneys who can both represent and post the bond at no additional cost. And there you do not have to pay twice. You now have an attorney who can help you post bond and get out of jail, and at the same time receive this same legal representation in order to protect your rights. Okay. Then also a criminal lawyer could have a hearing to help lower an unreasonably high bond. What if that bond is ridiculously high and you don't have the funds to be able to hire an attorney and post the bond? Your lawyer could potentially go in there, file a motion to set reasonable bond, lower that down to a lesser amount so that your loved one can post bond. Okay. Then finally, a lawyer can go file a motion to modify bond conditions if unreasonable. For example, what if the judge is making decisions based upon incomplete information, and now that judge decides you can't go back home? You're not allowed to go back home. That's a bond condition. Maybe they're saying you can't leave the county. Maybe they're not aware of the fact you live out of state or out of county. There's an area that you can't leave. What if you're unable to contact someone? There can be unreasonable bond conditions that a bondsman can't do anything about, but your lawyer can step in there and make those requests to see about modifying those. Finally, a criminal lawyer can immediately begin to defend you from the state. Your criminal lawyer can get access to the police reports, get access to any and all other evidence that's involved once the case is filed. And if your case is a felony offense, there can be a process by which that attorney can begin to gather that evidence. Maybe there's some witness statements that can be gathered, and it's possible that that information could be provided to a grand jury so that that grand jury may be able to make a decision that does not involve maybe being charged with a felony or maybe clear your name entirely through a no bill. Okay. And if it's a misdemeanor, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, your criminal lawyer can begin to immediately reach out to that prosecutor and begin to put together a plan of action for your defense. Now, what are the disadvantages? The disadvantages of only hiring an attorney from the get-go is if you don't have enough resources. Your loved one could end up remaining in custody if you cannot afford to bond out your loved one in that situation. But that's the reason why you want to talk to a good attorney that's going to actually walk you through these custom to your situation. What is your situation looking like? What type of high risk? Is it a high risk offense, a low risk offense? And this is what's important about working with an experienced criminal lawyer that knows the area that you're in, okay? So this is look, I'll be frank with you. I know it's a difficult situation to be in, and it's important that you or your loved one gets out of jail, but it's also important they maintain their long-term freedom and clear their criminal record by having a good lawyer working with them in this process. And so one of the things to do is if you have a case in the North Texas area, I want to invite you to call the Hampton Law Firm. You see the number on the above us here on the screen. Don't hesitate to give us a call. We'll be happy to give you a free consultation and a free case analysis. And I also promised you a free ebook, What to Do If You Have Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. All you have to do is click down into the link. I'll be happy to email that over to you. And if you liked what you heard here today, subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll continue to put out more great content just like this, and we'll have it sent over to you. Thanks again.